You are a real man, I'll say that. That's what A.J. Pierzynski said after getting punched in the face by Cubs catcher Michael Barrett in 2006. The thing about Pierzynski, he wasn't just hated by opponents. In 2012, he was voted the most hated player in baseball by his own peers. But even Pierzynski knew there were levels to this game. In 2014, he joked that Alex Rodriguez had finally taken over his title as baseball's most hated player. The truth is, baseball has always had its villains, but 3 players took hatred to an entirely different level. One was a strategic pest who thrived on being the bad guy. Another was a talented hothead whose temper destroyed everything he touched. And the third, he said things so offensive that he became a pariah overnight. This is the story of baseball's 3 most hated players and how each earned their reputation in completely different ways. Let's start with the guy who actually embraced being hated. A.J. Pierzynski didn't just accept his villain status, he perfected it. I think it's cool. I've won it a bunch of years in a row. Pierzynski said about being named baseball's most hated player. They just changed the title around. They change a couple of words. Here's what made Pierzynski different from your typical hated player. His own teammates loved him. White Sox manager Ozzie Guillen put it perfectly. If you play against him, you hate him. If you play with him, you hate him a little less. Pierzynski was a professional irritant. He'd run over the pitching mound after making outs. He'd step on hitters' bats. He'd show up opponents and get into fights, like that legendary brawl with Michael Barrett after a collision at home plate. But the most infuriating thing about Pierzynski, he was actually good. 2 All-Star selections, a Silver Slugger award, and a World Series ring with the White Sox in 2005. He was durable as hell, averaging 131 games over 4 seasons and playing at least 110 games for 13 consecutive years. When I play for 3 hours, it's about playing. It ain't about being friends, Pierzynski explained. Your best friend in the world can be out there pitching. I'm trying to get a hit off him. The Angels still hate him for his trickery in the 2005 ALCS. When he struck out, he fooled everyone by running to first base claiming the catcher didn't catch the 3rd strike. It changed the entire series. Wait till you hear them greet me in Anaheim, he said years later. And that was Pierzynski's genius. He knew exactly what he was doing. He was baseball's heel wrestler, playing the villain role to perfection. Fans booed him everywhere except his home stadium, and he'd wave right back at them. Even his reputation had nuance. Former teammate David Ortiz, who initially disliked him, later came to appreciate him as a good guy who was supportive during tough times. The Texas beat writers even voted him their Good Guy Award. Pierzynski was hated, but it was almost fun hatred, like booing the villain in a movie. He was annoying, but he wasn't destroying lives or careers. The same couldn't be said for our next player. Milton Bradley had everything: speed, power, a switch-hitting ability that made him dangerous from both sides of the plate. In 2008, he was an all-star, but talent means nothing when you can't control your temper. I don't have the same set of rules as other people, Bradley once said. I've committed mistakes in my past, so I don't get the leeway that other people might get. Bradley's anger issues followed him to every team he played for, and we're talking 8 different teams in just 11 seasons. That's not normal. Could it be that his anger stems from being named after a famous board game company? That he has to type MLB player before his name on Google? Or else this pops up? The incidents were legendary. In 2004, after making an error that cost the Dodgers a game, a fan threw a plastic bottle at him. Bradley's response? He picked it up and threw it right back into the stands. He was suspended for the rest of the season and ordered to undergo anger management counseling. The counseling clearly didn't work. In 2007, playing for the Padres in the middle of a playoff race, Bradley went on one of his classic tirades and tore his ACL while being restrained from arguing with an umpire. The Padres finished 4-4 without him and missed the playoffs entirely. But it was his time with the Cubs that showed just how toxic Bradley could become. Manager Lou Piniella called him a piece of shit during a heated dugout confrontation. According to reports, it was the worst fight Alfonso Soriano had ever witnessed. When Bradley was finally suspended by the Cubs for the rest of the 2009 season, his teammates reportedly applauded when they were told the news. "You have one guy being a cancer time and time again," said outfielder Brian Jordan, one of Bradley's most vocal critics. "Eventually, it's going to have an effect on the team." Bradley's response to criticism was always the same: blame everyone else. When Cubs fans booed him, he told a newspaper, "You understand why they haven't won in 100 years here, because it's negative." That quote got him suspended immediately. "There's too many people everywhere in your face with a microphone, asking the same questions repeatedly," Bradley complained. "Everything is just bashing you. It's just negativity." But here's the tragic part. Some teammates genuinely tried to help him. Eddie Guardado said he and a lot of guys got along with him great. The problem was Bradley's outbursts overshadowed everything else. Unlike Pierzynski, who was strategic about his antagonism, Bradley was just broken. His anger consumed him, and it consumed every team he played for. In 2010, Seattle manager Don Wakumatsu said Bradley was dealing with emotional stress and needed help. Bradley himself admitted he was struggling, saying, "I need your help," to the Mariners organization. By the end of his career, Bradley's personal life was in shambles too. Multiple domestic violence charges, jail time, a pattern of behavior that extended far beyond baseball. Milton Bradley wasn't hated because he was a villain. He was hated because he was a lesson in what not to do, of wasted talent and uncontrolled rage. But even Bradley's controversies pale in comparison to our final player, a man whose words were so offensive they nearly ended his career overnight and got death threats sent his way. In December 1999, John Rocker was on top of the world. The Atlanta Braves closer had just dominated in the playoffs, striking out batters with a 100-mile-per-hour fastball and an attitude to match. He was young, talented, fearless. Then, Sports Illustrated published an interview that changed everything. Imagine having to take the 7 subway train, looking like you're in Beirut, next to some kid with purple hair, next to some queer with AIDS, right next to some dude who got out of jail for the 4th time, right next to some 20-year-old mom with 4 kids. It's depressing. The biggest thing I don't like about New York are the foreigners. Wow, those words didn't just make Rocker hated, they made him a pariah. The reaction was immediate and devastating. Civil rights groups called for his dismissal. His own teammates were disgusted. But the worst part, Rocker had also called his own teammate Randall Simon a fat monkey in the same interview. Simon directly confronted Rocker about it, and the clubhouse atmosphere turned toxic. The clubhouse, like society, had been offended by Rocker's statements, and it would take time for things to return to normal, Clavine said. Commissioner Bud Selig suspended Rocker for the first month of the 2000 season and fined him $20,000. An arbitrator later reduced that penalty to a 2-week suspension and a $500 fine. Rocker was also required to undergo sensitivity training, but the damage was done. When Rocker returned to New York to face the Mets, it was unlike anything baseball had ever seen. Over 600 NYPD officers were deployed at Shea Stadium. Rocker was driven to the stadium in an unmarked police van because it wasn't safe for him to take the subway. The hatred was so intense that a taped apology from Rocker was played on the stadium scoreboard before the game. Fans threw objects, including a beer bottle, at the Braves' bullpen. The booing was deafening. But Rocker couldn't help himself. In 2000, he had a heated confrontation with the Sports Illustrated reporter, Jeff Pearlman, who wrote the original story, threatening him and trying to get him banned from the Atlanta clubhouse. "This isn't over between us," Rocker told Pearlman. "Do you know what I can do to you?" "I was scared," Pearlman later said, but he didn't do anything. Even his own teammates were fed up. "I'm amazed he hasn't handled himself the right way," said Brian Jordan. "If you get 9 lives, he's using them up pretty good." Tom Glavine, usually one of the most personable players in baseball, got short with reporters when asked about Rocker. I'm not going to answer any more questions about him. The Braves tried to make it work, but Rocker's presence had become a distraction and a source of shame. In June 2001, just over a year after the controversy erupted, they traded him to Cleveland. Unlike Pierzynski, who was hated but respected, or Bradley, who was pitied for his mental health struggles, Rocker was simply despised. His words had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. 3 players, 3 different types of hatred. A.J. Pierzynski, the Pest, annoying, strategic, ultimately harmless. He played the villain role perfectly, and even his enemies grudgingly respected his commitment to winning. Milton Bradley, the Hothead, talented but self-destructive. His anger made him impossible to root for, even when you wanted to see him succeed. John Rocker, the Bigot, whose offensive words revealed something ugly that fans and teammates couldn't forgive. Each represents a different way to become baseball's enemy. Pierzynski chose his path and thrived on it. Bradley couldn't control his demons and let them destroy his career. Rocker said the quiet parts out loud and paid the ultimate price. In the end, Pierzynski was right to joke about losing his most hated title to Alex Rodriguez, because being hated in baseball isn't just about what you do on the field, it's about who you are as a person. And these 3 players, they showed us exactly who they were. What do you think? Who was baseball's most hated player? Let me know in the comments below.